to support the speech made by our Prime Minister this afternoon. And Mr. Speaker, it was a speech that was fitting of the popular and respected man that leads this country, the Honourable John Key. The Prime Minister, as we all know, is aspirational. He's ambitious. And this speech, the 23 pages of the outline of his vision for this country and during this year is a speech and that must be admired, and it is one that echoed across this country as one that will lead us into this new decade. The Prime Minister outlined 6 areas that this government will focus on in the coming year. But before I talk to 2 or 3 of those areas, I just want to review what we've done in the last 15 months of this administration. We've navigated New Zealand through the worst global and economic conditions in this generation.
That's right.
We've enhanced the trust of the New Zealand people in our government by fulfilling many of the promises and many of the undertakings that we campaigned on in 2008. And this trust is reflected in the latest polls, which show on average 20% poll leads between this government and that opposition, and it shows even far greater differential between our Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, Phil Goff. And what have we done? Mr. Speaker, we've reformed the RMA to reduce red tape and bureaucracies. In health, we've kept wasteful bureaucracies and delivered more resources to frontline services. You see, in 9 years of that Labor government, we doubled the health spending where outputs and deliverables did not change at all. In fact, some of them went backwards. What have we done? We've added over 11,800 elective surgeries and improved the quality of life of those New Zealanders and their families. What have this government done? It's signalled a whopping $7.5 billion in long overdue infrastructure spending in the areas of roading, public transport and broadband. We also provided a fiscal stimulus and provided tax cuts for hard-working New Zealanders, which saw the economy finally grow again. That's what this government's done, but it's not resting on its laurels, no. This government, in terms of going forward, has set out 6 main goals. These are tax reform, more effective public services, support for science, innovation and trade, better regulation, and further investment in infrastructure and improved education. These goals, Mr. Speaker, are consistent with making New Zealand a more prosperous country and one that can take its place among developed countries, providing job opportunities for all New Zealanders and security for their families. Let's take a moment to just ponder the tax system. The tax system is, of course, about creating the right incentives for people to work and contribute to society. Savings, of course, are critical, but the most important part of the system really should encourage savings and boost the productivity of investments. A lot of the discussion this afternoon has talked about the gap between New Zealand, Australia and other developed countries. Well, Mr. Speaker, we all know that in order to bridge that gap, productivity and gains in productivity are critical to the future of this country. We also look to our taxation to promote fairness. That is why this government is looking at how taxation will affect people across the board. And if there are to be increases in GST, then of course these will be accompanied by compensation for lower income earners and those on fixed incomes. And when I go out and I visit the businesses in my patch of Maunga Kia, and I talk to the business owners and I talk to the employees, they are looking for some relief in the areas of taxation. The business owners, they want lower taxes in order for them to carry on investment into their productive resources. The workers, well, what do they want? They want more money in their back pockets so that they can spend it on their families and themselves. And these businesses also give me feedback about a number of the programs that this government has implemented in the last 15 months. And one such program, Mr. Robertson, is the 90-day Probation Act that we passed last year. And if you recall the scandalous way the opposition jumped up and down about this act, the fear-mongering that went on, and have you heard a whimper since in terms of what the world was going to fall over, as Mr. Tremaine has said? And did the world fall over? I ask, did the world fall over? Well, it didn't. And it again shows the sort of scaremongering that has gone on today is a continuation of the opposition's obvious whining and moaning about the sorts of government policies that are working out in our communities. In terms of education, Mr. Speaker, this year sees the implementation of our national standards. Of course, national standards are about helping the children of this country, not the unions, the children of this country get extra support when they need it. It's about informing their parents how they are faring in the areas of literacy and numeracy. And it's also about informing their teachers as to how they can go about improving the learning levels of those students that are in need. And when I speak to the principals and the teachers in my electorate of Maunga Kia, the schools which are primarily decile 1 to 4, and let me tell you, I don't know one teacher who is against standards in education. I don't know one teacher who is against better informing the parents of their students' progress in school. I don't know one teacher who does not want the best for their children. And while they may disagree about the implementation of this program, in terms of trialling, in terms of monitoring, while they may disagree about that, everyone that I speak to wants a better education for their children. And if that doesn't stir you, Ms. Today, if that doesn't stir you, then consider this. There's a teacher called Brian Langdon who runs the Reading Enrichment Program at One Tree Hill College. The program assists predominantly Māori and Pacifica students who develop their reading. There are kids there who have the reading age of a 10-year-old who are actually 15 years of age. If there is any reason to identify these literacy issues earlier than college, it is these kids, and they give me ample reason to support this policy. And if you don't accept that, you come to One Tree Hill